What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about sniper rifles again. I want to do like a meta AR video, but I wanted to give myself a little bit more time to actually play with the different guns, and I've been using pretty much all of them, so that'll be coming really soon. I've been playing quite a bit, and I have a pretty good handle on the AR, so that'll be a really soon video. But right now I want to talk about the snipers. I already made the Kar 98 versus the Swiss video probably 3 or 4 days ago, and basically I think the Swiss is a little bit better than Kar 98 now. They're both great, but the Swiss really, with this bullet velocity buff, has a lot of things going for it. So today, those are more aggressive snipers. Today, I'm going to focus more on like all-around snipers. So things that are good, you know, somewhat good up close, but also still really good at long range. Basically, that just means decent ADS time and good bullet velocity. And obviously, I'll talk about long range as well, because to be good all around, you have to be good at long range also. So we'll jump into that here in a second. As always, if you guys like the content, consider dropping that like, comment, and sub. Really helps us out. But let's jump into it and talk about what I think are the best sniper rifles in the game right now. I just want to quickly note also, I forgot to mention this in the intro. I've completely updated all the barrels from the Season 4 patch at this point. I think pretty much every change that they made is on the website. I found that there was no actual change to the Modern Warfare AUG. So despite what the patch notes said, there were no changes there. But all the barrel updates, all the two new guns are on the website with all the attachments. I've been absolutely grinding these last few days. Really updating the website, so all that's on there now. You can go play with that and play with your builds yourself. But let's jump into the snipers now. I just wanted to mention that. All right, so what we were looking for with an all-around sniper is basically really fast bullet velocity and pretty good ADS times, as well as nice to haves would be a really good fire rate, good aim sway, good zoom, and high damage profile. So I've kind of compiled all the things that I think are really important for an all-round / longer range sniper. I still think the Swiss and the Kar 98 are the best aggressive snipers for sure. Pellington's still not very good right now. The bullet velocity is still a little too low. I think it needs a little bullet velocity buff before it'll be in any good position. So we're just going to go column by column here. I've got the builds that I used for all of these. These are my recommended builds for each one of these guns. So if you're curious what those are, that's what they are down there. So we'll start with damage profile. I'm not going to actually show the damage profile, but ZRG does the most damage to the chest and stomach and extremities of all of them by a pretty decent margin, especially much more than the LW3 and the HDR. The SPR with normal rounds is second place, and it's about 10 or 15 damage less than the ZRG, something like 165. I don't know the exact numbers. ZRG is like upper 170s to the chest. Norma's like 165-ish. M82 I think is around like 130 now to the chest, so that comes in third place. These numbers are like rankings basically, so green is good, red is bad across the whole entire chart. So M82 is in third, like I said, and then the HDR and the LW3 are very similar. They both do about 115 to the chest, so pretty small amount to the chest. So yeah, ZRG wins that one by a pretty good amount, except over the Norma. The Norma is relatively close. Bullet velocity, always just want high bullet velocity. Higher the bullet velocity, the better. That's always the case. So first place again is the ZRG at 1280. Even after all the changes recently, it's still the fastest, up at 1280 meters per second. Followed by the HDR and the LW3, which are about tied at 1210, and then followed by the SPR Norma, which is at 1175, which is still really fast. And then the M82 is quite a bit slower, but after all the recent buffs in the most recent patch, it is over 1100 now, which is really good. This is a very usable bullet velocity. It's still quite a bit faster than the Kar 98 and the Swiss, down at around like 1030. So it's quite a bit faster than those. So again, ZRG wins this one. It just has crazy bullet velocity. And then for bullet drop, something a little unexpected here, except I've talked about this before, so if you've watched my past videos, you would know. The M82 and the Rytec have less bullet drop. And I confirmed today that that's not because it's zeroed at 100 meters. If it is a little bit zeroed differently, it's such a small amount that I could not measure it. What I did was I'd drop a C4 and go back a certain distance and shoot at the very top edge of the C4, and it seemed to blow up the exact same spot when I shot at the C4 on all the different snipers. So if there is a difference there, it's so small that I couldn't see it. But for some reason, the Rytec and the M82 have less bullet drop than the other snipers compared to their bullet velocity. So the M82 of all of these has the least bullet drop by quite a bit. It actually has about half the bullet drop of the ZRG. Really, the HDR is about tied with the ZRG. The ZRG has a little bit more bullet drop than you'd expect for its bullet velocity, kind of the opposite of the M82. So the M82 has about half the bullet drop of the ZRG and the HDR. Then the LW3 is going to be third. followed by the Norma, and these two are very close, and also very close to the HDR and the ZRG. So really the only one that stands out here as being a winner is the M82. But these are just slight differences. Second, third, and fourth are very small differences. And then ADS time is always super important with every kind of gun. So the winner here is actually the LW3 with this build. Now that we have 5mm laser and the airborne elastic wrap combined, I do think airborne elastic wrap is helping with flinch as well as aiming stability now. I'm 100% sure it's helping with aiming stability, but flinch is just a tricky thing to test. So I would recommend using the airborne over serpent wrap, even though serpent in the past has helped with ADS times a little bit more. I think the aiming stability and flinch resistance are worth it to use the airborne elastic now over top of the serpent wrap. So that's why I use that on all of my Cold War snipers. So back to ADS times. LW3 won ADS times at 483 milliseconds, which is pretty good. The Swiss was down at around 410, and the fast Kar 98 build is like 340 or 350, I think. So this is pretty quick for a really high bullet velocity sniper rifle. And that's followed by the ZRG. I don't know why the ZRG has good ADS times, but it does. It's a gigantic, heavy sniper rifle, but it has good ADS times. So about 20 milliseconds slower there than the LW3, followed by the Norma SPR, which is at 520, and then followed by the M82, which is at 558, followed by the HDR at 593. So you can get HDR bullet velocity with the LW3 with 110 milliseconds less ADS time, so that's pretty significant there. You can get faster than HDR bullet velocity with about 80 milliseconds faster ADS time with the ZRG. So that's a really significant benefit there for the ZRG and the LW3. Aim sway, I actually have a really cool thing I'm going to show you guys for this. We'll come back to that at the end, but these are just the rankings. LW3 has the best aim sway, in my opinion, followed by ZRG, followed by M82, followed by Norma, followed by the HDR. Again, I'll show you a video of that here in a second. Zoom, HDR easily wins Zoom, and Zoom is sort of like Zoom / Optic. It's kind of like which one has the best optic. So the HDR has that variable zoom scope that has a ton of zoom, so that's a really nice plus for the HDR over the others. The M82 has a really ugly reticle. Didn't really include that at the time. I was mostly just talking about zoom when I ranked these. So these three, LW3, M82, and ZRG, all have about the same amount of zoom, quite a bit less than the HDR with variable zoom, like a significant amount less. And then the SPR with Norma rounds with a variable zoom scope is even less. Even on high zoom on the variable zoom is even less zoom than the default reticles or the default scopes of the 3 Cold War snipers. So something to keep in mind. The default reticle on the LB3 is pretty good. Default reticle on the ZRG is pretty good. Default reticle on the M82 is bad. HDR obviously is customizable. SPR is customizable, and they've said they're going to bring customizable reticles to the Cold War snipers, so that shouldn't be a problem for much longer. But I just thought it was worth mentioning for now. And then last up, rate of fire. Rate of fire, obviously, this is where the M82 shines. It's a semi-auto. They increased it. They decreased the rate of fire a bunch recently, but because they buffed the bullet velocity now and some other things, it actually kind of fits in here. I kind of think it's a decent gun now. It's kind of fun. It can be fun to run. Good bullet velocity, good fire rate. You can hit those those follow-up shots pretty quick. Relatively good ADS time, good aim sway. I think the M82 is in a pretty good spot. It's just it's not going to be the one I recommend overall, but it is a good gun now, and it would be really fun to run for some people. But that 71 rounds per minute is great. That's awesome. Then the follow up after that would be the SPR with Norma. These are SPR with Norma, ZRG, and LW3 are all pretty close. 47 for the Norma rounds, 43 for the ZRG, and 41 for the LW3. And then followed by the HDR down at 32. HDR shoots a lot slower than the other ones. So these middle values are really nice for hitting your follow-up shots. 43 actually feels really quick. So that's really, really nice for that. Norma's 47, but there's so much scope sway as you're rechambering the next shot. In practice, you can't really hit those shots that fast with a Norma. Whereas the ZRG, I'd say you can actually get close to that 43 RPM for your follow-up shot just because it's much more stable as you're rechambering. All right, so this is what I was talking about when I said I had something cool for aim sway. What I did was I went to the same exact distance with all of those builds, those meta builds I showed on the spreadsheet, and I scoped in on this target and I recorded each one of them and how they were swaying, and then I obviously put them all in the same video here. So we're going to watch this on repeat a few times and you can see what you think has the best sway. So on the left is SPR, and then LB3, and HDR, M82, ZRG. And these are all the same distance from the target. What I did was I zoomed in the video to make the target about the same size, so the aim sight would be comparable in terms of magnitude. So you can see the SPR and the HDR Both are very fast and have quite a bit. The HDR is worse than the SPR. It's quite a bit faster and has a little bit bigger magnitude of sway. LW3 has super slow sway and very little magnitude. So that's interesting because the LW3 used to be the one that was horrible with that. But now it's actually the best with the bruiser grip and the airborne elastic wrap. And then the M82 has still, even with the bruiser and the airborne elastic on the build, it still has a really high magnitude of sway, but it's very slow. And I think speed is pretty important. So I think it's still good, even though it has a relatively high magnitude there. And then the ZRG, because you have to use that 5-round mag on the ZRG, you don't get to use the bruiser grip. So it's going to have a little bit more speed and a little bit more magnitude of sway than the LW3 and the M82. But overall, Cold War guns easily win this, just in the direct video comparison. All right, so in conclusion, I made a video probably 2 or 3 weeks ago that said the ZRG is king, and I still believe that's true. ZRG has the best damage profile, best bullet velocity, second best bullet drop, second best ADS times, second best aim sway, and a really fast rate of fire, and a clean optic with a good reticle. So I still think the ZRG is the best all-around sniper. Really long range, you still might want the HDR just because it has that really good variable zoom optic. That's the one thing that HDR has going for it still. LW3 is actually in a really good spot right now too. It has the best ADS times and the best aim sway with a still really good rate of fire. So LW3 is in a great spot as well. It just doesn't have anywhere near the damage profile the ZRG has. So if you miss that headshot, you're not going to do anywhere near as much damage. And then the last one I want to mention is the M82. I actually think because of this super high fire rate, and now the much buffed bullet velocity, it's probably actually pretty good. I need to use it. The one big issue I have with it is the slower ADS time and the really bad reticle. Once we can customize the reticle, I think the M82 is going to be in a really unique spot actually, because it has good damage profile and really good fire rate. You can just pop shots off really quick and wipe people really quickly. So that's kind of where it stands for me. ZRG is still my favorite, but I really think the LW3 is in a great spot as well. HDR for super long range. Norma is just kind of like, I just don't see much reason to use the SPR. I think it's kind of obsolete at this point because of the ZRG. The ZRG literally beats it in everywhere except fire rate. Every single one of these stats, the ZRG is better than the Norma. So one thing, SPR probably has a little bit better reload time. It's not on here, but it's not something that I think is super important for a sniper. So I don't have it on here, but that is another thing the SPR would win a little bit on. But that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. Just want to give you guys a rundown of snipers and what I still think of the ZRG and where it fits and everything. So if you like the video, consider dropping that like, comment, and sub. As I said, I'm going to follow this up with a video on the very best sniper complement weapons. So what I would run with these snipers and what I would run with the Swiss and the Kar 98 as well. And then I'm also going to do like a meta tier list sort of thing for assault rifles for long range and things like that. So those will be coming really soon. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something, and I will see you all in the next one.